Hello, everyone. My name is Rafael, and I'd like to welcome everyone to my Headshot Photography podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Dwayne Brown, amazing photographer and also the founder of Headshots Matter. I've been following you guys for quite some time. You guys doing amazing job when it comes to promoting headshots, to kind of like pushing the knowledge, sharing with photographers all this important informations about why headshots matter these days. So thank you for the accepting my invitation, and I'm really looking forward to talk to you because today we can really nail it headshots on so many different levels. And yeah, I cannot wait to dive into some of those topics with you.
Well, thanks, Rafael. I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I love what you're doing. You're shining light on an industry that we're all very passionate about, and I'm very grateful that we get to have a little chat. And you're in Calgary, I'm in Ottawa, so we're keeping it Canadian today, which I think is wonderful. And as I think I already mentioned to you, I'm originally from Alberta myself, and
Yes.
uh, and you're from somewhere else, but now you're an Alberta boy, so I love that.
Yes, yes. Well, you know what? Interesting. I've been here more in Canada than I was in Poland. So
Yeah.
now it's kind of the balance went towards Canada. So I spend way
Well,
more time in
hopefully
Poland.
you've kept all the good bits of being Polish and adopted the good parts of becoming a Canadian.
I hope so.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So let's start with that's my kind of starting point. All of us have a different journey towards into photography. We came from different industries. Sometimes we have different goals in life, and at some point in our life, we just like, okay, I want to be a photographer. So tell me about your journey. How did you get into photography? And then we're gonna dive in a little bit more. Why headshots? Because this is another question which I always have, like why people choose this particular genre of photography. But before we get there, why don't we start like, what's your story getting into this photography business?
Yeah, that's a good question. Might require a little time.
Okay.
I've been doing it a long time, but I'll try and make a long story relatively short. I started in the '80s in Edmonton, in Alberta, and I started my business doing more, I guess, advertising work, where we had to hire models and actors and build sets and find unusual props and work with art directors and designers and creative directors and that was a really great learning time for me. And but the type of photography that I always gravitated to uh, was people, and leaning a little more towards portraits, I guess.
Mhm.
And so I did that studio in Edmonton from '83 to '90. So that was about 8 years or so, and 7 8 years. And then I moved to Calgary, where I focused more on corporate work and
Mhm.
reports, doing a lot of oil and gas in the field, a lot of executives, and that's when I think I really started to uh, focus more on, I guess, what we would call now headshots. Back then, really, they were just corporate portraits, and that was in the day when the only people that really were photographed for corporate portrait were CEOs, CFOs, VPs of this and that, and also, but what was necessary was a high level of attention to detail. So because it was corporate and they were sort of pushing out their corporate brand to their investors with annual reports, you had to be really sort of on your game as far as making sure that you're photographing them in the best light possible.
Mhm.
Um, and then around 2000 or so, I moved to Ottawa, and I've been here since then. And Ottawa is kind of a hybrid of. I don't really do much advertising work, but there's a little bit. Most of it's client direct corporate work. We do a little bit of branding work for some colleges and universities and uh,
Mhm.
some tech clients, but predominantly I shoot more people, and that now it's leaning more into that sort of descriptor of headshots, and
Mhm.
so that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 20 or so years.
Oh, mhm.
But to kind of bring it sort of to a point where Headshots Matter came into play. About 8 or 9 years ago, I really starting to do a lot more LinkedIn portraits. I call them LinkedIn portraits at the time, not
Mhm.
headshots. And I built a lead generation project that was to just to help a handful of photographers or so, and I called it LinkedIn Portraits. It was linkedinportraits.com, and it did fairly well, and
Mhm.
and then COVID hit, and we paused it, and then everybody who were a part of that LinkedIn Portraits project at the time, which were really a handful of my buddies in other Canadian cities and a few in Europe.
Mhm.
Um, we just kind of wished each other good luck to get ourselves through COVID, and we all did that. And then as COVID started to kind of lighten, I reignited the project LinkedIn Portraits, and we grew it a bit more. And but then we we felt that it was important to broaden the offering, so it wasn't so just focused on LinkedIn, and we adopted the brand name of Headshots Matter, and
Mhm.
so it encompassed people, photographers that were photographing actors, personal branding, corporate, and still LinkedIn, and then that's when it really grew, and now. We're at around 220, 225 photographers, and we're in a variety of cities around the world.
Mhm.
Tokyo, Stockholm, London, Madrid,
Oh, okay.
Miami, Calgary, Vancouver, pretty well all the major cities that you can kind of think of. We've got a photographer or a few photographers, and and that's kind of where we are now. And
Okay.
yeah, so that's a little bit of origin story. I'm still a corporate commercial photographer, and so I still feel that I have relevance to the community because I'm kind of one of them, and
Mhm.
I'm dealing with a lot of the challenges that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, whether that's keeping the ball rolling business-wise,
Mhm.
marketing, SEO, website development, embracing AI, lots of different things. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now, Rafael.
Okay, so let's kind of dive in a little bit more into Headshot Matter. So, what is the main goal of this? I would say organization, community. What are you guys trying to go after? And before we go into this, I just want to mention one more thing. So,
Sure.
my background is weddings.
Yes.
And I don't want to go into that topic, but what I
Mm,
want to say, when I kind of transitioned into headshots,
mm,
I was blown away how helpful other headshot photographers were, because in weddings, like, nobody share anything with you. Like,
mhm.
you have to
Sure.
just figure out on your own. Even in like the same cities where we live, people were really kind of like reserved into
Mm,
telling you anything. And I remember like my short story. So when I got into the headshots, because
mm,
that was kind of my goal, I had some challenges. Of course, I didn't know how to approach them, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna just shoot out the email to some of those top headshot photographers at that time, and
sure.
then see if they're gonna help me. And believe it or not, they responded. They like, okay, do this, do that, change this, change that. This is the kind of formula. Try
Mm,
that. We'll see how that works. And honestly, like, my jaw just dropped, because I was like, how is this even possible that
mm.
someone from completely other side of the world,
Yeah.
um, is trying to help you without even like knowing who you are. And I was starting at that point, so I had nothing to
Mm,
show. And the one thing what I want to say is, the headshot community is, I would say, very unique, because
mm,
I think that's what started pushing sharing the knowledge, sharing the experiences,
mm.
helping other people. And I think we can see that for the last decade, right? Like, starting with courses, starting with tutorials,
Yeah.
starting with all these communities, like, for example, like yours,
Mm,
where people really supporting each other.
yeah.
So that's kind of my story to this. But
Mm.
tell me a little bit more about,
Well,
what was the main goal? Like, you told us like what was the main goal, but like, what's the goal right now? Like, what are you guys trying to achieve, and
well,
how you guys?
Rafael, I'm really glad you mentioned what you mentioned about how headshot photographers are fairly generous with their information and help and assistance. Um, to take it back a step or two, when I first launched the project LinkedInPortraits.com, one of the photographers that I reached out to see if he would mind participating.
Hmm.
I didn't know him. All I knew is that he had this really great reputation of being a very well known and very good headshot photographer, and that was Ivan Weiss.
Hmm.
And when I asked
Oh.
him, Ivan Weiss just said, "Yeah, absolutely, I'd love to participate," and with really, no real questions. And so that was very helpful, because a lot of people would see him on our website and on our social media, and then he gave I guess a quiet nod of endorsement to what we were up to. So that was very very lovely. To sort of answer your question of what are we up to and what are we doing and what's important to us. Um, Initially I was very focused on, I guess we'll call it lead generation, or helping photographers be better found, better connected to potential clients, and that's still very much part of the core interest and drive for me. But what I ended up discovering is when the more we grew our numbers, it grew a community.
Hmm.
And part of our curation of members is sometimes they'll come to us, sometimes I'll find them, but there's a real range of style, and no one photographer shoots like the other photographer, and we really don't want that. We really love the fact that the photographers have their own voice, creative voice, but the commonality, Rafael, is they're good folks, and they're helpful. They're community minded. They want to help each of the members. It's really it's quite lovely. And being a Canadian, that's kind of, and being an Albertan originally, that's kind of at our core of how can we. It's not about what can you do for me. It's what can I do for you. And so we've developed this really lovely community of members that really help each other. And being a photographer myself, and you're a photographer yourself as well, we know that in order to do what we do, we're surrounded by people and we're shooting people. But really, then we go back to our studio, or we go back to our office where we do a production. We have a fairly lonely existence in a way, right? We're kind of in our own bubble.
Yeah.
And so when we need advice, or we need to share a success story, or share a challenge, we used to be kind of on our own. And what Headshots Matter now has become is this really wonderful community where our members are there to help each other. We've got a couple of WhatsApp groups, one for our associate members, one for our creative members.
Mhm.
And example on the associate member group, we've got quite a number on there. Someone will bring a problem, whether it's marketing, SEO, AI, pricing, just how do you deal with a client that's kind of presenting a bit of a challenging situation. And you won't have one response, you'll have like 5 or 6. And so there's these different perspectives that kind of come into the equation. So we call it a soul entrepreneur. I don't know the expression, but it's just our community makes our members feel like there's always somebody in their corner. There's always somebody there to listen, and it's a really empathetic group, which is really terrific. Which doesn't surprise me, because in order to do a headshot well, you need to bring empathy and emotional intelligence to the equation. Because I'm sure you've heard it before. Everyone hates being photographed, and so that's it's our responsibility and our opportunity to help disarm people and to make people feel comfortable in front of our camera.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that our group, our Headshots Matter community, are a large group of very good folks.
Yeah.
And so
couldn't agree more with you.
Question, but
Yeah.
I can say that at the core of what I like to do, or I feel that we have a role to play, is I like connecting good folks with good folks.
Mhm.
So whether those are photographers with potential clients, or a large corporate client, international client, with the right team of photographers. I like to sort of play that role of getting the right people
Mhm.
connected.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I couldn't agree with you. And then you know what is fascinating? That was like the biggest shocker for me when I entered this industry. And then at that point, because it's been over a decade ago,
Mm,
headshots were just kind of developing, right? Like there was
yeah.
just a new trend, something that started like really raising and kind of separating from portraiture,
Mm,
and becoming like the kind of own entity.
yeah.
But one of those things which kind of impressed me a lot was the fact that people were extremely supportive, and then, like I never thought about it, but when you mentioned that, that's kind of like hit me really hard,
Yeah.
that we have to be empathetic, like we have to know how to connect with
Yeah.
people,
For
and we
sure.
have to quite often deal with people who like literally they don't want to work with us, right? Like they
Yeah.
coming, they have to get the headshot done,
Yeah.
and then we have to show that vulnerability, we have to just open up, we have to
Mm,
connect with them. And I think those kind of psychological elements just changes as a people, right?
yeah.
And then I see that across the board with
Mm,
most headshot photographers, that they very very sensitive, they very open up,
yeah.
they people who really they genuinely want to kind of help you, right? So
Yeah. It's been really humbling for me to see our community grow, and to have these members help each other. There's a few stories that come to mind. We have a member in Montreal. His name is Mike,
mhm,
and Mike, when he first came to me, his full time job was he was a palliative nurse,
mhm,
and that's how he made his living. But he was starting to do a little bit of photography on the side, and with a leaning towards people. And we welcomed him into our group. And I remember there was a small little Zoom meeting thing that we had, and Tom Travat was there,
mhm,
Mike was there, a fellow named Sean, who's in Stockholm, Sweden, was there, and a few other people. And for some reason, like Mike is this big, vibrant, strapping lad from Haiti, who's in Montreal, who speaks mostly French and English, and Sean is this burly dude who has UK roots, but he's in Stockholm now. The two of them just connected, and Sean
mhm,
took Mike under his creative wing, and helped him, I guess, feel better about what he was doing. And long story short, and Mike also got some mentoring from Tom as well in London. And now Mike is a full-time photographer, taking Montreal by storm. Super busy, shooting not in a home studio, in a studio. And I believe our community helped him get there.
cool, yeah.
And Mike is like super grateful, and such a good person. And so I love that story. Or there's a photographer that is in the UK, in Birmingham, or just outside of Birmingham, and his name is Oscar. He was doing a shoot in London, and he had his equipment, and someone came up to ask him for some directions. He sort of turned his back to his equipment, helped the person because he's a good dude. Turns back, his equipment's gone, and he lost everything, including the film from the shoot. The files from the shoot. He brought that forward in our WhatsApp group, and before you know it, like, great empathy,
Mhm,
very helpful from that side of it. But people then contributed to a GoFundMe campaign that someone, a friend of Oscar, had set up, and just the group was just helpful. So,
yeah.
those are just a couple of small stories that kind of
They're
exemplify.
small, but they're huge at the same time, right?
They're
Because
huge, and
community
because we
matters.
normally, I come from the day of shooting film, and um, no internet, no connection from a social perspective. So I don't know. It's beautiful that we have these people that are from all around the world, and without feeling that they're competitive, they just feel like they're helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but that's what I also noticed the difference, right? Like I remember, and again, I don't want to go back to the wedding kind of industry, but that industry was extremely competitive. Like
Yeah.
people like literally hate each other, right? Like that was like if you were more successful or you got more gigs or more weddings or your pictures kind of look better. There
Yeah.
was this jealousy between people, and you could see,
Mm,
feel the tension.
sure.
um in headshot photography, like this, our industry, like there is sometimes people who try to kind of I don't know, be this kind of pain in the butt, but
Hmm.
most of it, people who just, I would say, reach certain level, it's a
Yeah.
completely different discussion, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm,
that jealousy is kind of removed, like I would say, kind of like complimenting what do we do, or try
mhm.
to learn from each other,
Yeah.
rather than, like, kind of hating someone, right?
Mm,
So that's, I think, everyone who's listening to this and is
yeah.
planning to get into this industry,
Mm,
uh, I can say with confidence that you will be welcome, and then you can really feel, and you will see that people will help you if you're going to be struggle, or you're going to be
yeah.
just having some challenges.
You know, let's talk about that concept of competitiveness
Mhm.
when I was a photographer in Alberta, in Calgary specifically, I was like maybe one of the six photographers that got the large amount of the corporate work. And yeah, it was competitive, and you'd see each other at the lab looking at your film and stuff, and
Mhm.
people say, how's it going? And you say, well, it's busy, it's going well, but you wouldn't be too generous with really how it's going, right?
Yeah.
Because we're in one market, and we were kind of protective of our gig, right? I'm going to tell you a little story. So I was in London in November, middle of November, to go and support one of our members who had one of his photographs up in the portrait gallery of is it called the Portrait Gallery of England? It's the National Portrait Gallery. It's a
Mhm.
really big deal for a photographer in the UK to have a photograph in there. It's like up the pinnacle of their career. So I went there. His name is Raj Whitelock, and then because I was there, I went to go see some studios, Ivan, Tom, a few other studios. I met with a number of the members, and then I organized a meetup at a pub just right across the street from Trafalgar Square,
Mhm.
and we had about 20 photographers show up, all in this private room, many of which had never met each other.
Mhm.
London is a competitive market. Trust me, it's a big city, lots of opportunity, but people, they got to work hard for their business. Um, when these photographers came and met, they didn't shake hands. They gave each other hugs.
Well.
It was. I felt I was organizing a family dinner more than I was organizing an industry dinner, and it was really really wonderful. And everybody sat around and they had their pints of beer and drinks and
Mhm.
a bit of food and exchange stories, and it was really terrific. Tom Travat was there, Ivan Weiss was there, John Ferguson was there. People of great kind of experience and stature. And then there's also a few photographers there. Harry, he's just starting out. A couple other people that were being mentored by Tom, and so it was on all these different levels. But no one were keeping their cards close to their chest. They were,
Mhm.
they were just happy to meet each other, and I don't
Mhm.
know. So it's nice, and is that part of who our community is, or the general community? I don't know.
Mhm.
It was just a lovely story for me
Yeah.
to be a part of and to
Yeah.
witness.
But you can really feel it, right? Like, you can really sense it, that there
Oh,
is something different, right?
yeah,
Like, people are really, I would say, open to each other, and then, like, as you said, like, they don't treat each other like, okay, you're my competition, I'm gonna just kind of stay away from you.
yeah,
It's a little bit more. And even, like, going back to what I do with all these interviews and stuff,
yeah.
like, people were always open to
Mm,
talk, share their knowledge, share their experiences.
mm,
Never had any issues saying, like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything, or, I
mm,
don't want to kind of get and talk to you. Completely opposite. Like, it's I have just very very few people who just were either busy, they couldn't
mm,
have time or whatever. But
mhm,
most of those headshot photographers which I interviewed, they was always open up, and they really share their knowledge. It's not like,
mm,
we're talking about everything and nothing.
mm,
Was really diving into, like, really specific details, so
yeah.
people could kind of learn something from it. So let's kind of switch the topic a little bit, and tell me a little bit more about how people can join this community.
Well,
Is there any requirements? Do you have to, I don't know,
yeah,
take
for
pictures?
sure. we intentionally created two different tiers, an
Mhm.
associate tier and a creative tier. And in order to be accepted to be an associate photographer, associate member,
Mhm.
you need to have a certain level of expertise and
Mhm.
experience, uh, because we want to make sure that we're I guess protecting the brand and the beacon of what it takes to be a good headshot photographer. To be a creative member, we're very open to not anybody and everybody, but people who are emerging, who are just getting into it, or maybe they've been in a different line of photography doing babies and weddings and family portraits, but they're really shifting into headshots, but they don't really want to spend too much money, but they want to be part of what we're doing, dip their toe into the pool, so to speak. That's an easy entry point,
Mhm.
and really just in order to do that is reach out to me directly,
Mhm.
with my email address or one of our contact points on the website, or we have a page on the website that gives more information about joining, with a form that they can fill out to sort of so we can learn a little bit more
Yeah.
about them
And
and their
we'll
work.
link all this stuff so people can join it and
That would
just
be
take a look. Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, that would be terrific. And but I do need to qualify that
Mhm.
we're really, is if there's any deal breaker, it's just we just are really we want to attract people who are good people. And
Mhm.
I know that sounds a little la-di-da and a bit I don't
Mhm.
know, lofty, but it's important that we, I guess when you have this such a beautiful community, we just want to kind of
Protect it.
keep it growing in that direction.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so let's completely switch the gears and let's go
yeah,
to the heavy duty topics.
sure,
We're living in the crazy times right now.
yeah,
We have a little bit of discussion prior our podcast.
sure,
And let's talk about the current state of headset photography and everything what is happening with this AI stuff.
yeah,
I know there are two, I would say, opposite kind of communities. One is all
yeah,
for it, and the other one is completely against it.
yeah,
And some people are optimistic,
mm,
but most people are pessimistic.
mm,
A lot of people are completely terrified
mm,
on what's happening, especially in headshot photography industry with all
yeah,
this AI models or websites which
mm,
create those artificial headshots, which we also can dive in a little bit more into that
mhm,
details. But I want to kind of get into, you know, well, I would like to hear your opinion, which direction we are going, because I think
sure,
that's what is the biggest concern. And like just to kind of give a little bit of story to this. So
mm,
this year, I was invited to speak on headshots in one of those like Canadian conferences,
sure,
and I just kind of share some of the stuff what we can do these days, and I can
mm,
tell you people were terrified. Like you could see in
mm,
their faces that what,
yeah.
this is kind of crazy. So you who is in this who was basically part of this industry for the last 2 decades, like what's your opinion on that? And then we can kind of dive into a little more specific stuff.
Well, firstly, you're being very kind by saying 2 decades, because actually I think it might be four. But
Okay,
we don't
sorry.
need to highlight how long I've been doing this for or how old I am. But that's actually relevant because
Yeah.
I started in the early '80s, and I've seen many um, evolutions of
Mhm.
our industry, and some of the types of photography kind of being compromised or replaced, and so I've seen a lot of changes.
Mhm.
But really, kind of how I want to, I guess, address the question or the topic is and this is sort of something that I try to counsel our members on is AI is not here to replace what we do, what I do, what our
Mhm.
members do. It's a tool, and it's a tool to help us do what we do if we strongly focus and lean into the experience, the authenticity of what we do. It reminds me of an article that that Barry, our marketing colleague, had brought forward something that was on LinkedIn the other day that was posted by the folks at Ogilvy, the advertising folks, from the Mad Men ad days. And
Mhm.
they posted something that talked about that they were foreseeing in 2026 an authenticity recession
Mhm.
because so much, whether it's text or copy or video or stills or it's all generative, right?
Mhm.
And but we're human beings. We react more passionately, emotionally towards humanity and authenticity and truth. And so, what I got from what they were saying is that what we need to do is yes, we can discuss whether or not it's good, evil, or bad, or helpful, but it's here. So, and there's some really terrific tools, whether those are enhanced tools that are in Photoshop, or there are some standalone apps or websites that we can use to remove backgrounds or do, kind of a preliminary retouching. The most important thing we need to do is to believe in what we bring to the portrait or headshot experience with our clients. So, helping them tell their story, help them deal with their apprehensions about being photographed. When we do corporate work where 20 people are here to be photographed, 19 of those 20 people would rather just be back at their desk working. They
Mhm.
don't want to be doing this. So we have to help them feel okay and good about it, not nervous. Um, will that be replaced by AI? Well, of course not. We have to be, the photographers we have such a role to play. And so I recommend our members and anyone who's watching this, who's a headshot portrait photographer, lean into the experience you offer for your clients and capturing authenticity. There is beauty in blemishes. I'm not saying, don't retouch, but don't over retouch.
Mhm.
And we all look at AI generated portraits and headshots. There's something a little bit off-putting about them, whether there's too much symmetry and at the end of the day, it's not the person. It's almost like an illustration. It's really good.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Am I pro or negative or in the middle? Uh, it's a tool, and
Mhm.
I stand passionately behind is that I'm a photographer. Our members are photographers, and that's a very unique vocation. Uh, it's a unique craft. It's a unique calling, and I think it's very important to not freak out and not run for the hills. It's just really, if anything, focus on your authentic offering, and we're going to hear that word all over the place now, and authenticity,
Mhm.
real, and I believe strongly in it. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if that answers. That doesn't really answer the question. It just gets me a little bit kind of.
I think we are at that moment where I think this whole thing is we trying to figure this out, right? Because I think, like, I'm sure you remember that transition from, and I know it's not a good comparison, but
Yeah.
I think it just give us the taste of it, like when the film turned into digital, right? And then people were just like freaking out, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah.
digital is never gonna replace film, but slowly with time, with the process, with trying things out. But I think now we're facing a little bit of different challenge, because I think we have to face, as you said, this authenticity, right? Like that's the biggest word. And I had this conversation actually with someone not a long time ago, and they told me like, oh, like your industry is dead, and like I can get my pictures done through AI, and they're gonna be so good, nobody gonna even see the difference. And I said to that person, like, would you like to have your images of your kids or your parents or your loved ones who are AI? And like I heard a pause. Like actually, I don't know. I poked some part of the brain which they didn't expect that, and they like what? I never thought about it. I'm like, what? It's just shortcut, right, for a lot of people, right? Because you can
Yeah.
get it cheaper. quicker, without a stress,
Mm.
without tension, without going to photographer, with all this preparation. And, like, I know it's easier, and I know
Yeah.
a lot of us these days, we're going for convenience. Like, that's just part of who we are as a human beings, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, like, you have to just look at the big picture, how
Mm.
does it gonna affect. And then I said, what if you're running a business and then you're showing a fake picture of yourself, like, what
Mhm.
that tells you to your clients, to
Yeah.
your audience, to the business partners, and then even to the main important thing, to your
Mm.
client. You're just lying to them, right?
Yeah.
I think so. There's a lot of questions which I think people have to digest, and they have to just kind of think about it differently.
Yeah.
I think the biggest, well, the interesting thing is, like, we got just like bombarded with all this stuff, with these
Mm.
tools, which they do things which, um, you know, we never thought it's gonna be possible. Because, and
Yeah.
this is like one of the things I remember with the digital photography. Like, I remember when I got my first digital camera and I shot like one of my first weddings with this digital tools, and I was just like, oh my god, like, I can take as many pictures as I want. It was
Yeah.
just like this, I don't know, if you get a cake or something, like, you get this adrenaline hit. It's just like, oh my god, this is so cool. Like, I was not able to do this for ever, and now I can.
Yeah.
But with the time, I think we will start looking at this whole thing a little bit a different way.
Yeah. Rafael, if you want to get, philosophical about this, or not you
Hmm.
specifically, but generally speaking,
Hmm.
photographers have always been, in many respects, the truth seers. We capture truth, and so I think that we still have that role to play.
Yes.
Um, if and where the truth starts with a commercial, corporate branding, portrait or headshot, it starts with the base file, the base photograph. Like, I will never, of course, buy into the fact of let's generate that, because that doesn't make sense, because that's not truth. But so we capture an image based on a real experience, helping a person that has real insecurities or apprehensions about being photographed. They have a real story to tell, branding, or a personal branding story, or corporate branding story. We are the conduit of that. And so that base file needs to be protected from a truth perspective. If we use tools to help, retouch some blemishes, or some flyaway hairs, or some lint on a jacket, of course, like we want to also, polish that raw, truthful image. We've always been augmenting reality. When photographers shot in black and white, well, reality is not black and white. When it's color, well, they were slightly different. And then, how you light things is sort of different. So there's an augmentation of reality, and I think the soft augmentation of reality with digital, in how we retouch, has to be done carefully, never over the top. And um, so I think it's here. Obviously, it's here to stay, and it's helpful to me as a photographer, in how I can move through a number of images quicker than before. I can deliver the product quicker. Maybe, I don't know if it's better, because we all have the ability to do everything that an AI post production tool can do, with Photoshop. But even Photoshop, like, that's a tool.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think artificial intelligence is a helpful tool on so many levels. So from a retouching point of view, it can be very helpful. An ideation point of view, very
Mhm.
helpful.
Mhm.
Organizing business systems, very helpful.
Okay.
So even research, great. Business development, great. It's helpful.
Yeah.
We adopt it. We don't adopt it. We use it. We embrace it, and on
Yeah.
many levels. So, but we still have to be careful, and
Yes.
just know that we are the truth seers, the truth capturers, and we have to, whenever possible, protect the truth, and to keep focused on that.
Yeah. So tell me, what's because you are extremely involved with the community,
Yeah.
what's their kind of like a census over what it's happening? Like I know
Oh,
this discussion, I think, is just popping up everywhere, right? Like,
yeah.
it was
It's
interesting for
it's
me.
it's Rafael. It's varied.
Okay.
Um, some of the photographers are I guess worried, and some are fine. Some are a little more philosophical about it.
Hmm.
But so what I bring to the community, is I try anything that they bring forward that they're worried about or confused about or freaking out about. I try to kind of bring calmness, whether it's they're having a very slow month or whether they're worried about what AI is doing, or whether they're worried about what I don't know, another studio is doing that they may not think is ethical. Like I having 40 years experience in the business, I can see things, they go up and down, up and down, up and down. I'd like to help our photographers, our members, sort of be calm, play the long game. And, it's not to say you put your head in the sand and ignore the realities, but it's also, don't get too focused on the noise. Get back to business. Like, we can be, exchanging all of these ideas about our concerns, and that's fine. But also, let's lean into what I was saying earlier, like what was sort of inferenced and suggested by that Ogilvy post is, know that we're going to have an authenticity recession.
Hmm.
Okay, human beings don't like that long term. Focus on authenticity, focus on client service, focus on marketing your work as being truth, focus on it being authentic. So our members are varied, and I think that we will see our way through this, and next month it'll be perhaps something else that will bring concern to our community, and we'll collectively help each other with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Mm.
think, yeah, and then you're like, I don't really see like anything slow down. Let's say for me, for example, right? Like, I people know about it. I've noticed, they
Yeah.
acknowledge that there's possibility, but they still, as you said, believe in that authenticity, and then this is something that push this forward for
Yeah.
sure. But I agree with you, and this is like, I think, one of those things which
Mm.
I thought a lot about, is that it's gonna also put us on the kind of pedestal where we have to rethink this a little bit more, right? Like, how
Mm.
we can provide better service, how we
Mm.
can improve the shots, how we can
Mm.
improve the connections, how we can make this
Mm.
experience even more special. And that's what's gonna like really, um, maybe not filter those bad photographers, but
Mm.
definitely we will have to just really upgrade some of the stuff what
Mhm.
we do to
Mhm.
make the experience very
Yeah,
special.
and a few other things about this is that, one of the things that I really enjoy about our community is that, the photographers that we have collectively, um, they all have their unique style. They're not all trying to shoot in a particular style with the same lighting, the same backgrounds. They're doing things a little bit uniquely and differently, and I believe that that also will help them stand the test of time as well, so that it's not going to be as easy to, I don't know. Again, if a client is okay using a generated image of themselves, then you can't really argue it. They're going to do that. But if you, in the long term, in my opinion, corporations, companies, organizations, they will have standards in place that will not allow that, because
Yeah.
they ultimately will be more focused on truth. We've even had one of our photographers, one of their clients, had them sign something saying that none of their images will be generative. Like they needed to say that they are going to be authentic. Now, we
Hmm.
may have the pendulum swing a little far, and even talking about sort of AI related post production, but uh, again, I really believe if you have a large multinational corporation based out of the UK or the United States or Canada, they are not going to want to have their people faked. They're not. It's like having a caricature, an illustration. Like it's not. I
Yeah.
don't believe it's going to be
Yeah.
what's going to be
And
cumbersome.
I see that in my work. Corporations, they're very careful before you do this something which could really also
Mm,
affect their reputation,
yeah.
right? Like I know, and there's two things what I want to actually talk about. One,
Mm,
I'm sure you've heard about this recent McDonald commercial
mm,
where they can use total kind of AI tools, and they create this. It was pretty amazing
mm,
advertising. There's no
mhm.
question about it, but people boycott it. Like people just like, what,
Yeah.
this is, even though McDonald in general, like I don't want to say anything bad about them, but
Yeah.
the stuff would the images they're generating to selling the product, they
Mm,
also like very highly altered, and there, but there's still some truth behind it.
mm,
But there's another story what I want to share, and I think that's what's also gonna I don't know, just bring a little bit more topic. There's this like a little short clip um, circulating around online, where there's this guy, and he actually went on the date with someone,
mm,
and the girl had 99% images which were generated by AI, and she just
yeah.
admitted like, okay, this is AI, and the guy just left. He's like, you know what, if you cannot even
Yeah.
show yourself with real images and you're just creating AI. And then they showed a girl, they showed the images, and they were off. Like you could
Mm,
really see that they
sure.
were really, and then so people are reacting to this,
Mm,
right? I
mm,
think what is interesting right now that those images, they're sometimes too perfect,
mm,
right? And then
mhm.
people really getting kind of caught up with this, that we want to showcase ourselves from the best light, from
Yeah.
you know
I'm glad you brought that up, and I wasn't necessarily going to bring this into the conversation, but it makes sense now. One of the things that I've it's been banging around in my head for like a year or so is dating profile
hmm
photos, right? And so if you again, it's the world that we're in. A lot of people meet in this sort of domain, and so if you present yourself in a particular visual way online, and then you meet for your coffee or your date or your walk, and you're a different person, well, it just doesn't logically make sense,
yeah
right? So, I've been wondering, is there room for a bit of a, I don't know, a sub brand to Headshots Matter? Because we're very much about authenticity.
hmm
Is there room for a little bit of a sub brand that might help photographers who may not photograph headshots, but they might photograph dating profile photos?
yeah, this is
Or
actually a big part of my business, to be honest.
interesting, interesting. Well, then I think you're going to like this.
Yeah.
So, also, some of our photographers will get asked, "Well, can I use this photo, on my dating profile?" So that's cool, right? So I've been
Awesome.
batting it around for a while, and I was looking at doing a standalone website, and but I spin a lot of plates as it is. So I thought, okay, how can I still pilot a project and test the waters? So we've just recently soft launched within Headshots Matter a little sub brand that we call Authentica. And
Mhm.
Authentica is, and you can access it through the Headshots Matter website, which I can give you the link later. You can put in the show notes. Is we're looking for photographers that really are passionate about photographing that type of
Mhm.
photography, but authentic
Yeah.
and lifestyle and real. And it's still complimentary, but it's photographing people as far as who they really are.
Yeah.
And so we've just softly, it isn't even launched, but we have a few pages that we've built for three of our members, and they're already page one, result one, in some cases, if you're searching for the right
Mhm.
criteria. And so I don't know, I think there's something to that, especially
It's a
like what the
huge market. Just so
yeah,
you know, it's a massive. People getting divorced like crazy. The
cool,
dating pool is huge.
yeah.
Um, eh, yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think we could create another podcast and talk
I,
about
I
this.
I would like that. Let me get this a little bit sort of off the ground a bit,
Yeah.
and I'm a little not sheepish about it. Just I never want to water down one brand to help another brand, but in my opinion, they're a little bit related because we're
It's hugely related, and I
yeah.
think,
Okay.
as I said, like
Good to
the
hear.
people looking for this, and again, we go back to this
Mm,
word of authenticity, right? Like,
yeah.
people um
Mm,
not only need that, but I think especially, like if you in that kind of place where you're looking for, someone who you want to
yeah.
share your life with,
Yeah.
and then, it seems like
Mm,
I think that the problem is that, and then this is what I've been hearing from
mm,
many of my clients,
mm,
stating that, those images on those dating profiles
mm,
are very curated. Like, I think
mm,
they did, some of them even kind of offer you just, the same kind of
yeah.
thing, that you can just put bunch of, selfies, and they're going to create all these amazing
Mm,
shots.
sure.
But people sense that, and
Mm,
automatically puts the red flag,
yeah.
and you're just killing literally, the possible connection you might get with
Yeah.
someone, right? So that.
Ultimately, if you're looking in that domain for your person, you want to find your person, right?
Yeah,
So it's kind
yeah,
of makes sense, not rocket science, right?
yeah,
And I think we're going to see on so many levels. Again, one could be worried about AI. I'm actually kind of excited that
mm,
because of things kind of moving in a direction of truth versus not truth.
yes,
We're humans. We're going to want truth. We're going to want authentic. And so whether it's a headshot, whether it's an actor that's wanting to present themselves for a role, whether it's a corporate
mhm,
folks or LinkedIn or a dating photo,
100%.
ultimately my money's on people sort of chasing the real
Yeah.
deal. So
Yeah. I also heard some, I want to bring this up too, because I think that's extremely
mm,
important.
mm,
I'm a huge fan, and I'm sure you've heard about him. This, I would say, icon of marketing, Gary Vaynerchuk.
yeah.
And he said something recently which also like hit me so hard, and I was just like thinking about it for days.
Yeah.
So he says that, a lot of those things, like it's, we cannot reinvent the wheel, right? Like, a lot of those businesses which are existing,
Mm,
they are because, they exist, and there's,
mm,
don't try to be, I don't know, more unique or whatever, right? Like, your business is your business. Someone done it before, you can just improve it, but
yeah.
the whole thing is pretty much, it's settled. But he says what the difference is, nowadays people are going to hire you, or do business with you, or use your service because you, right? Because who you are, how you can basically present yourself.
Yeah.
It's about, how you can talk to people, how you
Mm,
resonate with them, how they
mm,
can kind of see you. And again, we're going back to this word authentic. It's kind of really kind of coming to the surface. And he says, like, those people who will be successful in the next decade for all this AI, those are the people who gonna show their face,
mm,
they're gonna be authentic, and then people gonna be do business not because you're business, but also because who you are, right?
mhm,
And I
mhm,
think that's our play comes to play,
mm,
where we can showcase these people in this beautiful, I don't know, environmental, headshots or portraits or whatever, just show who is behind the business, right? And I think
yeah.
that's also what COVID did, right? Like,
Mm,
back in the days before COVID, this persona per se, part of business was not kind of important. But
mm,
I've noticed after the COVID, where everything kind of went online,
yeah.
businesses start really caring about, like the employees, who they are, how they look, how we can present them,
Mm,
and how we can kind of make those business, um, with the faces who is involved in those
yeah.
businesses, right? So
Um, I think face to face, the real deal, is so important. In these days when we put a lot of emphasis on our online brand presence,
mm,
our SEO, the right words on our website, even the right imagery. I think there's two other things that are more important, and one would be again how you actually treat your clients while you're in the process of photographing them, hugely important.
mhm,
And also if you want to connect with more people, network in person, like go to events or if a client emails you for a proposal, I'm talking about corporate, um, don't just send them the numbers. Have a phone call or ask them if you can come and see their location, do a location scout. Then there's a face to face, again, real deal, human to human. I find that some photographers might be a little bit shy of that because they'd rather it just sort of work for them. But at the end of the day, I think it's okay, and it's kind of fun to do a little more kind of face to face, the person to person, yeah, the real deal, the authentic experience.
Yeah.
Authentic matters.
Yeah.
Headshots matter. It all matters,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, let's have fun with it all, but let's also um, um, focus on truth and the real deal.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because
Mm,
I think, even through those conversation,
yeah,
your brain start looking at those things kind of a little bit a different way, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then, one point which you brought up, this like, face-to-face conversation. I think also
Mm,
this is huge problem nowadays because, we all text messaging, we sending emails and this, face-to-face and even phone call conversation.
yeah.
One of the things what I've been doing for most of my business, I was trying to talk to people directly. So if I
Mm,
get inquiry, I do whatever I can, and I can tell you, and I'm sure you experience this the same.
mm,
People are more resisting to talk to you, right? Like I don't know,
yeah.
they're scared, and even like from the, as you said, photographers, sometimes they're resistant to do that. But
Mm,
I'm completely like opposite. Like I want to talk to people because you
yeah.
know what, it just completely changes the dynamic. You can listen to them, you can
Yeah.
hear the problems, you can hear exactly what they're looking for. How you can help them, how you can serve them, how you
Mm,
can make these things better. I think
yeah.
so. Pushing this is extremely important nowadays in this kind of
Mhm.
digital
Yeah, it's
world
way
where,
it's way it's way funner as well. It's
yeah,
it's just it's really it's pretty neat, and especially headshot photographers where we enjoy that one
mhm,
on one, that face to face. That's I believe that's
mhm,
why we do this, right? Like
yeah,
it's because we enjoy connecting and helping people in a face to face kind of way.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit. I'm gonna just completely go off the
Go for it.
charts, and then let's talk a little bit about just the headshots in general, because
Mm,
like we've talked about
sure.
all this AI stuff, but like I want to talk a little bit more with you about headshots in general.
Mm,
So one of the things which you mentioned, and I 100% agree with you, and I think that's what it's amazing,
yeah.
that there's all sorts of different styles of headshots.
Sure.
Even it's a headshot, we can see across the board
Mm,
styles which people developing, they
mhm,
focus on it. Um, so tell me a little bit about especially looking at the community,
mm.
um, what makes headshot looks interesting. What is behind it that makes
Yeah.
those images unique.
So good question, and I think it's a cornerstone question that that we all need to take seriously. So there's a couple different ways of looking at it. So we have members in different markets, different cities around the world, and we know that there's certain looks and feels that happen in different markets. Example, let's say United States, Florida has a particular look which tends to be a little more polished. Um, in London, UK, it's a little more not raw, but it has a little more real, authentic look to it.
I've
Um,
noticed that, yeah.
Canada, sort of a little somewhere between the UK and the United States. Asia, it's a little more interesting as well. Regardless of style, what I think is important from my own personal and professional experience, a photograph needs to always photograph a headshot, a portrait, commercial portrait needs to tell a story. What's the story? If you don't know what the story is, it's hard to get you to know which direction the headshot should work in. I also don't think it's helpful when a headshot is following, or a series of headshots, or photographers who are shooting headshots all kind of start looking the same. Again, what's the story? The story is about that particular style of photography as opposed to the person they're shooting. I think the person they're shooting should always be the paramount focus. And
Mhm.
so I think that's important. In regards to what makes one better than the other, or when I just I don't know. It's a there's different styles that I think are interesting. I love uh, 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 recommending that photographers find their creative voice, or
Mhm.
stick to their creative voice. I would never want them to adopt someone else's creative voice or look, or even the way that they light. You can learn from that, but then find your own way.
Mhm.
And we the UK and the rest of Europe, they have a little bit more tooth or edge to their style of photography. There's the lighting is a little more, I don't know what I call it, Rembrandt, or it's more interesting, right? More cinematic. Maybe that's a good
Mhm.
word. And a lot of American photographers they tend to kind of maybe light a little bit too much just from the front, and maybe it's a little. I don't want to say it's too polished. It's a style that seems to work for their market, but again, if it's telling the story for the client or the corporation or the brand, then I think that's good. But I don't know. It's a hard question to answer, right? Because
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
subjective. But
Exactly. Yeah.
it's I
But
have my
also,
own
what I
personal
found
thought.
what is interesting that I'm sure you remember when this whole industry started kind of like really walking on their own foot,
Yeah,
or on their own feet. I've noticed that people were trying to be different. Even like what was headshot was a headshot. Like what is the big deal about headshots, right?
yeah,
But people find a way, which is fascinating for me.
yeah,
Everyone found kind of own voice, own
mm,
style, and you can
yeah,
see this significant difference between some of those
mm,
styles. I
mm,
agree with you, and I never thought about it, which is interesting when you mention about, like, each kind of country or area or region
mm,
has kind of
mm,
own particular kind of style you can kind of see
mm,
across the different photographers.
mm,
They mixing each other too a little bit, right? Like we try
yeah,
to take some of those things and what works for us. And I think what I want to add to this, which also is one of the most fascinating things, what I've learned,
mm,
that we fought a lot. Like at the beginning, we always focus on lighting and the gear we are using and
mm,
all this stuff. But I think what it's amazing about headshot photography, that we've gone past that, right? Like we focus on face expression,
mm,
micro face expression, the body language, the
mm,
creating the story behind it, the
mm,
creating this kind of like visual
mm,
story which tells something about that person. Like
mm,
when I started working in the industry, that wouldn't even cross my mind. Like, for me,
mhm,
it was like, what lights should I get?
yeah,
What lens do I need? And
mm,
the rest of it, like, was not existing, not even a problem, but not existing thing in my
yeah,
head to focus on it, right? And that's how far we've gone over the
yeah.
last, couple decades with headshots.
Yeah, on all of that, one of the things that is important to me in regards to um, how we've curated our community is we have a lot of photographers, and I do my very best to share as much of their work on our social media channels. But we have some members that are they're creative beacons, let's say.
Mhm.
Cicella Johansson out of Sweden, uh,
Yeah.
Johnny Edward in Denver, Ivan Weiss in London, Tom Trevette in London.
Yeah.
Um, these are people that are very focused on they have a very strong identity to their creative voice, and they've got all of them have very different styles. And I think that's kind of neat to show for us as Headshots Matter, to show that as example. But then beside a post that we did with Johnny, we'll then have a post by a photographer who's just emerging, who's just been started in Calgary. I think that's kind of cool. So I'm trying to present our social media presence sort of almost as example, as kind of a curation what's kind of interesting and cool out there. Never, ever, ever imagery that's all trying to look the same. That's just not
Yeah.
like we're at the end of the day, we're photographers. I know I got into photography when I did when I was young because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do what everybody else is doing. And I think the majority of photographers out there internationally probably are drawn to it for that same reason
Yeah.
instead of trying to find adopt someone else's voice. So, or we got Sean in Stockholm. I don't know if you know, Sean would be a great interview for you.
Yeah.
He's terrific, and what I also want to say is because I look at so much imagery now, I can almost tell who shot it
Yeah.
based on the image because they have a unique approach and offering, which I
Yeah.
think is really, really terrific.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so I have one more question. This hour just like went so fast. Holy smokes.
Is it a
Uh,
skill testing question? Is it a geography question? Is it? No, go ahead,
no,
Rafael.
no, I want to actually talk. Well, I want to ask you something completely different.
Yeah.
And this is usually my final question. For what would you say? Because not only the amount of experience you have, but also you running huge and very, very successful community for hatchet photographers. What would you say to someone or to people who want to enter that industry?
Mhm.
Who are hesitating, like we're living in this times where, I don't know if I should, pursue those kind of creative
Mhm.
professions. There's
Yeah.
all sorts of different mixed opinions on this. If this could be successful, can I make this like a, something
Yeah.
that can brings me enough money to live off this? Can I make a successful business
Mhm.
out of this? And then, like I just want to pursue this. Tell me, what would you say to those people? Should they pursue it?
Well,
Should they kind of take
yeah,
a
I
step
would I would
back?
say
They
a
should
few
take
things.
it
So
slowly. What would be
yeah, if a friend came to me and their 20-year-old son or daughter was interested in becoming a photographer, I would have them be very realistic that it's not the easiest industry to make a living. I would say that to them, but that's how old I was when I started. I was 20, and I think if you want something bad enough, and you are dedicated, and you are not afraid of hard work, I think you can do it. These days, it's different than when I started, and I think if you're a good people person and you're have a natural emotional intelligence and you enjoy problem solving and part of the problem solving is technical and emotional and that kind of stuff. Headshot photography is possible. You don't necessarily have to have a decade of experience to start. You need to shoot. You need to practice. And then what I would tell any photographer who's either emerging, thinking of getting into it, or has been doing it for a little while, you have to shoot all the time. If it's possible, shoot every day. Maybe you can't. Maybe it's hard to shoot headshots or portraits every day, but shoot something every day. Um, it's not impossible, and I'm seeing it. Like there's a one of our photographers. His name is Chris Henry. He'll love to be mentioned in this podcast because today, what time is it now? Well, it's 1 o'clock our time in Ottawa. Right now, as we speak, he is doing his open house at his very first studio he's ever had.
Mhm.
Chris comes from the world of academia in London. Where was he? So he was in Kent County, and he's now just taken a lease on a studio. He's got 50 or so people showing up for his opening, including the mayor of his town. And before 2 years ago, he wasn't doing this. He was a
Mhm.
teacher in a university environment, but he did acting and he wanted to do something creative. And so he's good buddies with Tom Travat, and Tom got him involved with us. We brought him into our community. We all sort of kind of championed and helped him. I did some one-on-ones with him. Barry has done lots of work with Chris as well, and he's doing it.
Mhm.
So my hat's off to him, but he's determined, and he's doing his best to shoot all the time. And So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question, what I would say, but yes, it's possible, um, uh, but it's not easy. And to make a living at it, that's another level. And on that point, we're not here to teach anyone how to make six figures. That's not what I want to do. I want, if that's what someone wants to do, we can help you kind of get there. But we want to really sort of champion you for maybe you just want to do them here and there. Okay, we're
Yeah.
happy to help you do that too. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's a super fun, as you know, Rafael. It's being a photographer. It's like it's the absolute
I
greatest
would never give
job
that
in the
up.
world, right?
Just this, yeah, I would never give that up. You know what? I can be, and I know it's gonna sound crazy. I can be poor broke,
Yeah,
honestly. But those sessions, those interactions, those friendships,
yeah,
the people we work with, it's something about it. And I'll tell you one story. I've shared that story here countless times, but I think it's important to share it. So I had before COVID, I did the workshop in Houston,
mm,
and I had a gentleman there who brought all this, expensive equipment.
mm,
And I remember, we have this discussion, and then he said to me that, like he's been quite high in the corporate world, and then,
mm,
like he, well, basically what happened was that the doctor says, you know what, you gotta find some hobby that's gonna take your mind off this,
yeah,
because you're gonna either die from heart attack or stroke, um, because the tension and all this kind of environment you're working in
yeah,
is literally killing you.
mm,
And so he started like taking pictures of his family and friends, and he says to me that photography gave him this peace of mind where he
mm,
has to relearn how to interact with people, how
mm,
to be vulnerable, how to connect with them, because in this corporate world, everything is cutthroat. You cannot trust anybody. So he was using photography as a
mm,
therapy, and he came
mm,
to this workshop so he could learn a little bit more about the lighting and other stuff. And I remember that was like a pivotal moment for me where I was just like, wow, photography is, and headshot photography especially, it's not just taking photos or someone, like it's a therapist. And even I think, I don't know, like the Peter Hurley, the guru of headshot photography and in the current world, he mentioned that, like the way he look at it is, I don't know, like 80% therapy and 20% photography.
mm,
So I think there's something more about it, right? Like I deeply believe that there's way more deeper meaning with connecting with people. And this is what is missing these days too, right? Like, we
mm,
talk about it all this, like, text messages and emails, and like nobody wants to see each other face to face, like it's something that we just like literally disconnecting each other from each other on the massive scale. But headset photography just bring us together, right? And then, as you said, like if you want to do this professionally, great. If you want to do this, just for fun, also go for it.
mhm.
It's going to bring you a lot of pleasure, for sure.
Yeah, and on that note, if you're either of those two people, reach out, talk to me, send me a message, direct message on Instagram, or you'll have some links in your show notes, and I'm happy to talk. And even on that note, that's something that both myself and Barry do regularly. Is we reach out to our members just to check in. How are you doing? And
Yeah,
so yeah, voice to voice, face to face,
excellent.
if possible, on virtual, or if we can possibly get in the same city. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Dwayne, that was
it's
amazing
pretty good.
conversation.
It's
Thank
fun.
you for, as I said, accepting to join the podcast. I think we touch all sorts of different
Yeah.
important topics. We didn't touch anything technical. I know some people getting upset about it, but
Fine.
we can do it
No, no,
another day.
technical. Anyway, you can learn technical.
Exactly.
I'd rather talk about sort of the philosophy and the real.
Absolutely. So what I would like to suggest, maybe, we can use this podcast as a part one,
Yeah,
and then in the next, I don't know, couple of months, let's check the schedules, and then why don't we talk more, because
that would be great. But
yeah,
Rafael, I think maybe next time, I think you need to be with a bit of plaid, since you're in Alberta, right?
yes, we'll talk about it.
Maybe not. Anyway, thank you for your time and for putting this together. It's really nice, and I'm very grateful. So
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rafael.